All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Palm Beach North podcast, brought to you by Jupiter Medical Center. My name is Noel Martinez, President and CEO of the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce. And today, we're going to dive right into arts and culture right here in Palm Beach North. We have a very special guest with us, Mr. Andrew Kato. Andrew Kato is the visionary leader behind Florida's preeminent Maltz Jupiter Theater. This non-for-profit theater serves over 100,000 people annually, has an $8 million budget, has a very, very, very strong subscriber base, and has a huge heart for education. We could not be more proud of this little crown jewel that we have here in Palm Beach North. So Andrew, welcome to the show.
Oh no, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me today.
So first of all, congratulations. 19 nominated for 19 Carbonell Awards. Did I say that right?
You did, yeah. 19
awards. You won the Ruth Foreman Award. Like, that is absolutely amazing.
Huge honor. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Tell us about that award. Who gets that award?
Well, it's for general excellence. So they recognize theaters from time to time. I don't think it's every year, but it's every several years. Basically from the North County down to Miami.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And so I guess we did a good enough job that they're happy with our work. And we found out that we're getting this award coming up.
That's great, and that's awesome. We're so proud of you guys, and I brag about how amazing the Maltz Theater is all the time. So before we get into all the amazing things that are going on in the theater, I think it's important that we get to know about the man behind the mission. I really want our listeners to get to know a little bit about you.
Sure.
So let's talk about you as a kid. Where did you grow up?
I grew up actually in England. I lived there for 2 years. My father was a captain in the Vietnam War. When he was in Vietnam, I lived with my mother and my sister in England. My mother was a puppeteer, and that was my first introduction to theater. Wow. She was a marionettist and did it professionally. So actually, my very first memory of going into a theater was seeing a show called The Counterville Ghost, and then going backstage and seeing these kind of lifeless hanging puppets, and being kind of curious about that and the whole theatricality of it. And from there, then we moved. I had a British accent. I had a little Cockney accent when I was a kid, and I was 5 and 6 years old. And then we moved to New Jersey, and that completely undid my accent, So, but I was a very strange kid. I liked magic, and we lived on the top of a mountain in Warren Township, New Jersey. And so the idea of like playing sports, you drop the ball and you end up chasing it down the road, for half the day. It just wasn't in my DNA. And so I did like 8mm films, of Dracula, and did magic, and I was just a weird kid.
Well, I don't know if that's weird. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure you know a ton of magic tricks. I don't know any magic tricks, but
I do. I do them I do bar magic sometimes, and I actually taught Matthew Broderick one of my tricks. Yeah, I was out with him one day, and I showed him something. I picked up something off the table and showed him, and
that's a good story. That's a way to start a conversation, right? So any brothers, sisters, anything like that?
Yeah, I have an older sister, 16 months older. She's terrific. Katie Kato, they named her.
Katie Kato. Okay.
Katie Kato. Yes. She's in human resources in the area as well.
Oh, good. She's in the area. And how did you end up here in Jupiter? Like, I mean, your sister lives here in Palm Beach County, you said?
She does. Right? Okay. She does, yeah. I went to Jupiter High School. I grew up here before moving to New York. New York via Portland, Maine. I worked at Portland Stage Company for 2 years after college. I went to Florida State University, and always wanted to work on Broadway. And I really believe in manifesting ideas, and I certainly continue to do that today. I think that I believe in The Secret. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's kind of manifesting things. It's like putting out ripples out to the world, and then eventually they come back to you. And typically they don't happen the way you think they're going to, but they eventually do happen if you want it bad enough. So I've done that most of my life, and I've been very privileged to do everything that I've wanted to do. I wanted to work on Broadway, wanted to have a career in the theater. only done that in my life. There's only one side job I ever did. I ran a household for a family in Manhattan with a staff of 7 from 7 in the morning till noon every day. But that was my
sounds really rough.
It was a lot of work. Yeah. Cause I did all their finances as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
But that was my only get by job, is when I was starting my company in New York as a producer, and I had to pay myself. So, I had to find a way to live, but I never waited tables. I've always been in the industry. Then I wanted to produce the Tony Awards. I worked on the Tony Awards for 13 years. And then finally, some of this overlap, but I was invited to come back to Jupiter, to what was the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater that I worked at as a kid. I was a waiter there through high school, and I put myself through college there. And my first instinct was, you can't go home again, and when Milton Maltz and Tamar Maltz invited me to come down, I toured the theater, and it was having a rough start, to be honest with you. And when I showed up, it looked like a warehouse, and there was no landscaping and no furniture in the lobby. And it really felt like it needed to look like a home. So very quickly, having grown up here, the Yum Yum Tree, I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, they provided us with these kind of wicker chairs.
Are they still open?
No.
They're not?
They say the McKenzie sold it. Yeah, it's still there, but it's a different company. But we actually had our first furniture in the lobby was donated, and it looked like the Golden Girls, the porch of the Golden Girls, and very Florida, but at least it felt somewhat permanent. When I came down here, it was like, it just felt like in 2 weeks, maybe it would be gone. Right. And I was like, that's a terrible impression. And bit by bit, we got people to be excited about it. I stood literally at the front door for the first 2 shows to shake everyone's hand, because I felt like it needed a face. It needed somebody to love it and to show people that we're going to be here. And I remember when I was shaking people's hands, they were kind of looking at me like, who the hell is he,
But this young kid. Right
now. But after a while, people were like, oh, okay, and we just built it from the ground up. And it really has been successful because of the people who show up for the theater, both in contributions, but mainly in ticket sales. I think that the community made it very clear that so long as we created quality programming and quality product on our stage, something that they can be proud of, that they would support it. And I wasn't planning on staying here. This is now my 19th season, and I wasn't not planning on staying, but I don't know that I had it figured out that this would be something that I would do for a long time. But, so people would be like, oh, we're going to continue giving, but we just want to make sure that you're going to be there, Andrew. And I said, look, as long as we keep growing, then why wouldn't I do it here? This is paradise. We live in paradise. Even when you go away on a trip around the world, whatever, driving back down into Palm Beach County, driving along I-95, as weird as it sounds, I'm always like, oh my God, I'm home, and it's such a great feeling.
Well, I get to brag about it all the time, right? We live in paradise.
Yeah.
We've got the best of everything, right? We've got this great theater. And I'm not saying that because you're here, because I say this to everybody all the time. We've got the best mall. We've got amazing golf courses. Our
great hospital, Jupiter Medical Center.
Jupiter Medical Center, great hospital, great healthcare, great schools. Mm-hmm. Like, we're so fortunate to live where we live. We really are.
Indeed. Yeah. And in many respects, we're in a little bubble ourselves too. I think that people, we find in the theater, a lot of the people who come here are either from Cleveland, right? They kind of migrate down from Cleveland, or they come from the tri-state area, which is a theater going area. They have their Broadway fix. And so when they come down here now, they want the equivalent of that. And the fact that we're creating art on a grand scale through our productions, and we're doing Broadway quality work, they're like, yeah, I'll show up for that. And a lot of times they're saying, like, we don't charge enough for our tickets. They're like, you can charge more, Andrew. And I'm like, no, that's not our mission. Our mission is to make it affordable for everybody. So yeah, I'm really pleased, that we've grown in the way that we have, even through the pandemic and the trauma of building this, $42 million building. It just has worked out, and everyone's coming back, and everything is back to normal, or our new normal, I should say.
Our new normal for sure.
Yep.
So your title is producing artistic director. So tell us a little bit about that. What does a producing artistic director do?
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of regional theaters, the way they're structured is that they'll have a two-headed monster, right? They'll have an artistic director and then a managing director. And my training is really in both. I have both a degree in business and in theater. And I think it's probably a benefit to our organization that both art and commerce live in one brain, right? Because I have to kind of duke that out with myself. So when I'm choosing a season, I'm not only thinking about what to put together that would make sense artistically, but also how we fund it. And decisions are made in ways that people can't even contemplate. For example, housing. If you notice, we always do a large scale musical in January and we end the season, and right in between it, sandwiched right in between, is a small play. It's because of housing. Oh. We have 7 3-bedroom condos, but if you did 2 back-to-back large musicals, then it would be the housing issue would be, greater.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So it's things like that it's just better. I can fight with myself, right? I don't have to fight with the money guy if I was artistic or it all lives within me.
So what does a day-to-day look like for you? Like typical day, you wake up in the morning, you're probably at work till 10, 11 o'clock at night every night.
Yeah. In season, we're expected to do long hours. And in fact, on Broadway, most offices open at 10 o'clock because most people are out at the theater working in some capacity, right? So our days are very long. Not in the summer. We do our summer programs for kids. We do have a full-time staff of 50 people. And believe it or not, most of our work, all of our invitations, our events, everything is pre-prepped in off-season. It's because nightly we'll have 2 or 3 things going at the same time. So we need to do all of that work in advance. So we're very strategic in terms of how we approach our work. I think probably more so than a lot of businesses. And a lot of people would be surprised by that because they think that theater people are perhaps more flighty or, just responsive. We're the opposite. It's called show business, right? Mm-hmm. So we're a business and we have to operate that way. So right now I'm producing this season. Next season is already decided and contracted, and we're doing artwork and all of our work. And then I've already opened up the 25-26 season and started thinking about that because we're about 16 months in advance of everything. So yeah, it's a business. So a typical day for me, it can be anything. And what's cool about my job is, first of all, it goes by very fast because at any moment I might be, I'm conceiving right now our new production of A Christmas Carol. Mm-hmm. So I'm in artistic meetings. We were talking about a new song that's going in today. We're talking about orchestrations. We're talking about one of our little kids who were in it just dropped out. So we have to do a cast replacement, right? And then in the next meeting, I might go into our endowment meeting with Harvey Golub, who is the CEO of American Express, and talk about our investments in our endowment, right? Mm-hmm. So or go into a budget meeting about our new second space, 199-seat theater that I have to start, even though it's not finished yet, I have to start planning for next year. It's going to open in May. And that's how far out in advance you have to be. So
you talking about business, right? And, I say that all the time. The Chamber's a nonprofit organization, but we run like a business as well. Mm-hmm. You are a nonprofit business, but I mentioned earlier, you have an $8 million budget. Yeah. It takes a lot of money to produce and to be able to do what you do on a daily basis. So where does all that money come from?
Yeah. People are also surprised that a lot of our budget comes from ticket sales, 60%. It's the national average is about 50% earned, 50% contributed, and we're about 60% earned. And so that would be from our season shows. Most of them not only break even, but we build in profit. And pre-pandemic, we were doing between 92% and 100% capacity. So in pre-pandemic, we were we had a $6 million initial loan on the theater. We paid that off in 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting that art can actually fund business opportunities, and we're scholarshiping kids in our area for our school. So yeah, that all gets rolled up into one. 40% does come from contributions, and people are very generous in this area. We do have a $10 million endowment, so we get 5% draw from that. So that's about $500,000 a year, which is wonderful. But yeah, it operates like any other business. And we've been in the black every year that I've been there. Early years, full credit to Milton and Tamar Maltz, they bailed us out to about a tune of $1 million my first year, 500,000 the year after. But in addition to that, they created this endowment, right? And then they've also contributed towards our new building. So in their lifetime, they've given $30 million to our organization. Wow. So everyone needs a Milton and Tamar Maltz in their lives, right? And I'm so grateful to them for creating that comfort level that we can do the work that we do. And there are many other donors as well, to thank Ro Green and Rick and Peggy Katz and people who've been with the theater for forever. But part of I think our success of our fundraising is our engagement with our donors. So we do a number of events at the theater. They're called Circle of Friends events, where we invite them to see how we create our magic on our stage. So our first event for Murder on the Orient Express is called How to Stage a Murder. And the set actually is, it rotates, it revolves around, but it comes together in pieces. So as one set's on, they're attaching another piece, and then it revolves around. So it's got, we'll expose how that happens.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And people love that, or bit mapping projections, like projection art and scenery now is a huge new addition. We have a 40 by 25 foot LED wall that we use a lot. So the technology, all of that people are interested in, or how an audition happens. One year we invited our donors to come in, and they got to select the music, who paired with who. They had all these different options, so they knew that we weren't making it up. And they choreographed 3 separate numbers within a half an hour right in front of their eyes. And they were like, oh my God, I can't believe how fast they work. And they literally made it up right in front of them. And so it's creating those moments for our donors where they're super engaged and they're everyone loves a little lifelong learning, right? You keep that interest going.
Yeah. And then, so I also mentioned that you have you have a huge, strong subscriber base, right? So season ticket holders, I guess, right? Subscriber. Yes. I call them season ticket. I'm thinking football numbers.
Yeah, but it's the same.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So how do you build that? Because you've built that drastically over the years.
Yeah, so retention is probably, I think, another area that we succeed in. And I'm thank you for asking, because our marketing team gets most of the credit for this, but it's developed into an art. So one of the things is announcing early. I was telling you that we're well planned, right? So I already know what next season's going to be. We announce in the 3rd week of January, so we're in the height of season. We talk about ourselves and the show for 2 shows. We table in the lobby where so we send out the brochures, and we're actually tabling every night with our team. So if they forgot their subscription form, we can print one out right then and there. And then after that, after the show, the season ends, we send out a postcard that, I'm not joking, is like monster size, that comes in there, and it literally in red and white letters says, "Don't lose your seats." And that it's a little fear-based, which is, but people are they take huge ownership over their seats. And when they get that card, suddenly all the subscription for, the ones that people have forgotten. And then outside of that, we call, and basically, unless you tell me I hate your guts and I never want to see you again, or, we pegged off, we're going to keep bothering you.
Borderline stalking a little bit.
No, yeah, I guess maybe a little, but you know what? It's just not letting the opportunity pass. So our retention is very high. And then from that, then you build your numbers up, right? You're always going to lose people because they move out of the area or, whatever. But we don't give them that opportunity. If they don't have a good excuse, we're like, no, come back.
Yeah. Well, so the theater, by the way, it looks absolutely gorgeous. You've had some major renovations over the last few years. Talk a little bit about that. Talk to us about what, the community can look forward to.
Sure. Well, the idea of doing the build out came out of a wonderful strategic plan that we started probably about 10 years ago. And then we started fundraising about 7 years ago. And there were three main objectives. One was to launch a pre-Broadway show. So most shows that go to Broadway try out in a regional theater like the Maltz Jupiter Theater. And no fault of Bert's, because the zoning in Jupiter was much different, but the stage scale was not big enough to be competitive for people to try. Because you want to have a stage that's approximately the same size as a Broadway house, not a performing arts center, which is much bigger, but a Broadway house. So we create traps. We did all the things that would be little traps, which are the area under the stage where you can lift people up through. We created a bit bigger fly tower, all of that. And so now we're getting the phone calls from Broadway producers saying we would like to try out our show in Jupiter, which again creates wonderful economic activity for us because they bring millions of dollars of investment down into this area.
Oh, yeah.
So the second objective was to diversify the kinds of shows that we're offering. So we decided to create a 199-seat second space, which is being built right now. And then the third objective was to double the size of our Goldner Conservatory, which is our school, where we're teaching after-school summer and weekend programs. And that's our final bit of fundraising that we need to do. There is a naming opportunity for the right person with signage on the outside of the building that's been pre-negotiated with the town of Jupiter because they're very particular about how much signage.
Just a little bit.
In a good way, I think. I mean, I love Jupiter and the way it's grown up.
So I love Jupiter too. Yeah, I live in Jupiter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we have 8,600 square feet that still needs to be built out. We're hoping to fundraise that this season and get that started next summer because our goal is to educate about 1,200 kids a week in classes. So really, it's all about creating opportunity for our community to be engaged with us either by coming to see a show or being educated, or we have 400 volunteers as well. You can be part of our program through that. There's so many different ways you can be involved with us.
Something else I talked about was education at the beginning. And we talked about the conservatory, and I know kids that have been through that program that actually end up on some of these big shows. Talk to us a little bit about that. What's the tell us about the program.
Yes, so there are different entry levels for kids to come in. We like to create opportunity, and not everyone has to be a star and have the greatest voice. Sometimes just being part of something is like being part of a sports team is important, and kids love the skill set that they develop from that, whether it's just learning to be a good public speaker or learning discipline. We teach discipline very well. Obviously, to be good on stage, you have to be a triple threat: sing, dance, act, stage combat, learn lines, all of those skill sets. And they've actually done studies with kids that they find if you're involved with an art and culture project, you're more likely to do well in school because of the skill set that you learn in theater. Mm-hmm. And so you have that opportunity to come in and just be maybe a part of a summer camp and do a musical or a play. And then we also have advanced studies for ballet and jazz and other dance where you can actually hone your skills to be ready for auditions, or where you can work in other regional theaters, or we've had some of our kids go on to Broadway. So that's great.
And how do you find those kids? I mean, do they find you, or do you have some sort of program where you're going into these schools that kind of, because I mean, not every kid has access to.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Believe it or not, it's a little bit build it and they will come. That's why it's a little frustrating right now that we have this unfinished square footage of 8,600 square feet. We just need the studio space, right? Because once we build it, we will be able to do so much more. Mm-hmm. And then also it's about outreach. So we do fundraise to bring Title I schools in to do shows, but we also do auditions. First Step to Stardom, where like there are kids in A Christmas Carol. There are 12 kids who have auditioned, and they will be in the show. Oliver, all the kids were local kids, except for Oliver. He came in from New York. So there are opportunities for kids to rub elbows with the professionals and or just be involved with a summer camp. It doesn't need to be one thing or the other.
One of my favorite kids ever was in Oliver, Chase Bauer.
Oh my God.
I'm like an uncle to him. I love that kid. He is so sharp, and I know how proud his parents are of him. And when Mike was on this show, we spent a lot of time talking about the show and how proud he was, because it was right when Oliver was coming out. So it's an amazing program, and I've seen Chase grow.
Yeah,
like I remember him when he started. Going to the Conservatory and getting involved with the theater, and where he's at now is just unbelievable. So.
Yeah, well, he just, I mean, part of it too for him is he just has natural ability. So when you have someone who is that talented, then our job is just to kind of hone it, right? And or even just create opportunity. So when he did Oliver, he was rehearsing with a 2-time Tony nominee, Dennis Jones, right? And Dennis is a perfectionist. I mean, he doesn't let anything go, right? So to be involved with somebody who has very high standards, is only going to benefit the kid, right? But Chase also rose up to the occasion. He was as good as any kid on Broadway. And, I told his parents on opening night, I'm like, he's got his equity card from us, from the theater. If he wants it, when he's ready, we will sponsor him with that, because he's got it.
Yeah, we're so proud of Chase. He's the best, man. So let's talk about culture and staff, right? You have a lot of staff that's been with you a long time. You have a huge, 400 plus volunteers. So what's the culture like at the theater? Like behind the scenes, what we don't see?
Yeah. I'm really proud of our culture. We actually have developed something called Talented and Kind, and it's actually a logo that has been created. It's probably like 5 foot around, and it's posted in all the areas backstage. And it came out of a speech that I give on the first day of rehearsal to the visiting artists. So we'll bring people in. We cast out of New York and locally. But when the cast comes together for the first day of rehearsal, I say, listen, there are 2 reasons why everyone's in this room. First of all, you're all very talented. And that goes not only for the people on our stage, but the people on our staff. And the second reason why you're here is because you're kind. And if you're not, there's the door. And I'm not kidding. Leave the drama on the stage. You have a choice every day to wake up and bring something positive. You can have a bad day, not a problem. You can't have a bad week, right? And I think what's important is you just set those expectations, you put them out, and it works. Interestingly, we added Talented and Kind to a new area of our theater, which surprises people, but it's at our box office. It's our customers. During the pandemic, we fired 8 customers because they didn't know how to speak respectfully to our staff. And we have cameras. No, 100%.
Good for you.
Those in our society who don't know how to be kind to each other, they don't have a place at the Maltz Jupiter Theater, I can tell you that much. And so, it does create a very high level of expectation, and I think it has to start at the top, right? And so, look, we're not without flaw, I don't have a perfect day every day either, but I think at least the expectation is there. And people actually comment, especially visiting artists, when they come in, they're like, oh my God, this is like, you can just feel the positive energy in the building. And that's the goal, you can
feel that. I don't care what business, what organization you walk into, you can feel that. You really can.
If people are happy or not, right?
Yeah.
And also keeping an open door policy. Like I said, I do probably 8 to 10 meetings a day. But when somebody needs me, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily a business related thing, people have complicated lives, and sometimes people just need help.
Yep.
And if theater people can't be there for each other, who could be?
What about growth opportunities for your team members? Like, how do they grow within the organization?
Yeah, for the most part, I think we're very proud to promote people from within. And again, it's kind of like casting a show. Not necessarily, not everyone's going to be a natural fit for the next step up. But where there is opportunity, you want to give that person their chance. People invested in me when I was growing up. I had a lot of people who, my first Broadway job, Margot Lyon, I was working in Portland, Maine. I drove in, I did an interview. And, you know, she took a chance on me. And same with the Tony Awards. When I went to Ricky Kirshner and Glenn Weiss, who are the executive producers, who by the by now are not only doing the Tony Awards, they do the Kennedy Center Awards, they do the Oscars. They're the most prolific, the most go-to producers for that kind of thing. Well, when I started with them, it was their first year on the Tony Awards. And we did an interview, and they were like, "Do you want to be the creative consultant to the Tony Awards?" And I was, you know, I could drop the phone, like I couldn't even believe that they were offering that to me. And the funny thing about it was, midway through my first season there, the line producer came up to me and said, "Andrew, listen, the guys are really happy with you, but they want to know, why are you here every day?" I thought that was the expectation, and I had just jumped in and I learned about video production and how to produce a segment just by showing up. And so that's kind of what I was talking about, manifesting things. It's just like, part of the job is just showing up, just saying, "I'll do it," or, you know, "Let me do it," you know, and then people giving you the opportunity to do that. So I'm extremely grateful to them that they gave me, you know, 13 amazing years of, I started with Wicked and I closed with Hamilton. Those were my 13 years there. So
that's not bad.
No, it was really good.
Yeah, no, not at all. So board, you're a nonprofit organization. You have a board just like I do at the Chamber.
My
By
boss,
the way,
yes.
you're one of my board members.
Yes.
What is the role of the board members in steering the theater's, strategic plan?
Well, our board is, very engaged, and I'll give you an example of something that happened coming out of the pandemic when we're trying to get audiences to return. I went to our board and I said, you know, I need help. I need help in getting new donors to the table and new audience members. And so very quickly, it was within weeks, we created a new committee called the READ Committee. It's called Revenue Enhancement and Audience Development. And out of that program came a new ambassador program that we're creating this year, which is it's like a volunteer, but it's an outbound volunteer that go and talk about all the things that we have to offer. And this came directly out of a committee, though, from the board. But they're also, their job is to be advocates for us. They do a lot of fundraising. They make introductions, even for the build out. You know, they'll set up the meetings. I may go close them, and you know, one of our board members did a dinner party on Jupiter Island every night for 5 nights in a row with 8 people at the dinner table every night. You know, that's the opportunity that they create. They do a lot of cocktail parties. They do a lot of entertaining for our visiting artists. They give us money, you know. I mean, they're super engaged in a way that it goes beyond just having your name on a letterhead. It's about really caring about our organization.
So you touched on your ambassadors, right? So you have your ambassadors out there helping you spread the word about all the amazing things going on. What are other ways? Because marketing is a big part of this, right? And letting people know what's coming up. And we've touched on a few of them, but what are some really creative or different types of ways that you're getting the word out about what's going on?
Part of the power of theater is invitation, right? It's literally inviting people to be part of your organization. So we do that we are currently doing it in a number of ways. One, we're offering backstage tours, and people can sign up, and we'll take 20 people at a time, and they'll walk through, and they're shocked at how big the building is. It's 62,000 square feet, 3 stories of rehearsal halls and costume shops and all this creativity that's happening. So they love that. We're also offering master classes on Saturdays. They're free to the public, 11 o'clock. People can sign up online. It gets them in the building. They get to hear an aspect of our production, like how to create colorful characters, or a little bit about Agatha Christie and her history, whatever it is. On 42nd Street, behind the scenes stories and the experts coming in and talking about that. So, and then also democratizing our space, giving, we're a community center. We happen to specialize in theater, but really our building belongs to our community. And so it's really about making sure that people feel like they can invite their friends. So we're doing book signings and we're doing events for
the chamber. Yeah, you host us all the time.
And
thank you, by the way.
But I mean, it's our pleasure, and it's honestly our duty. Like that is our obligation to the community to do as much as possible, and make sure that people are inside. Also, we do a series of limited engagements too. They're basically really high end tribute bands, and. You could probably see them at Abacoa, but you're in a nice theater and it's not going to rain and you don't have to bring your folding chair. You know, it's a comfortable theater.
AC is nice too.
Yeah, this year we're hosting WRMF though. They do a Halloween event where they created this film, and so we're doing it for Little Smiles.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's just like doing. Oh, and another thing we're doing, I'm so excited about is Community.
I was going to ask you later about it, but go. Yeah,
no,
go ahead,
it was an idea that Christina Renasco in development came up with, and then Jeff in marketing came up with the pun Community. But we're inviting 20 not-for-profits to decorate a holiday tree in the spirit of their organization. So I know the chamber is one of them.
Yeah, our education foundation is going to be there. Yeah,
but we have a really diverse group of people: Mandel JCC, Compass, all of the people that we know in this area that we love. We invited them to come together, and Roger Dean, I think, might be doing it. I'm not sure, but we're going to decorate 20 trees. People can come and vote, and Row Green, one of our donors, is giving a $5,000 gift to the winner. The people get to vote when you come in and view the trees, and the winning organization will get a $5,000 check.
Is this where I plug, go vote for the Palm Beach North Education Foundation tree? Because we will be there.
Yes.
This is where I plug it, right?
Yes, where you plug it.
All right, good. So let's have fun with this question, because a lot of people don't really know what goes on behind closed doors, right? So what was the most challenging show that you have ever directed, and why?
Not that I directed, but because I mostly produced, I was involved with. We did a production of Amadeus, which is one of, I don't know if you've seen the film, but Mozart's life was captured in this film. And I was always in love with it. And it was originally written as a stage play. And the challenge was that the director of that show hired a lighting designer that created these really beautiful looks. I mean, it's very filmic looking, but literally it was so dark on stage. Actors were coming up to me and they were saying, "Andrew, can they turn up the lights?" And like, we can't see each other on stage. I mean, it was very well rendered. And I believe one of the reviews said, "We think it was a good production, we just couldn't see it," or something like that. So it's things like that. You know, they make for good stories, but when you're going through it, it was kind of like, you know.
It's not fun.
It's not fun.
No, it's not fun. So we've got a great season coming up. We've got the directory. Is that the directory?
Yeah, it's our season subscription. They're still available. You can get online. A great season starting with Murder on the Orient Express.
What are you most excited about? What's the show that you're most excited about?
Well, I'm developing A Christmas Carol, and Christmas Carol has not been done in this area, and we thought, let's try and make it a perennial. Let's start it in the 659 seat theater, and then if people come and support it, then we'll just keep doing it every year in our smaller space. But what I love about A Christmas Carol is Ebenezer Scrooge's journey and kind of self-reflection. He's forced to look back on his life to see what kind of person he is. And I think it's a really good time in our society, in our culture, to go let that bounce off of you. Come see the show and check in with yourself. Are you doing everything that you can to make a great community? Are you kind to people? You can see a theme here with me. It's like, look, life is hard, and let's just try and make it all a little bit better for everybody. So whether you're entertained by coming to see Carole King's Beautiful, or you get a less, Christmas Carol 2 is going to have a lot of special effects. We're doing flying and, magic on stage. It's going to be 70 minutes of great fun. So I'm not pushing the message part of it. You'll have a good time as well. But look, if you can't reflect at the holidays, then what are you going to reflect on?
Amen. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
So, all right, last question, because we're running out of time.
Okay.
I ask this question to everybody. You have really left your stamp in this community as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Not the theater, but Andrew Kato has. So what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I'm lucky that I have a partner, Jay Johnson, and I have a son as a result of that. And he's 30 years old, and he just recently got married, and he's super successful. And so a lot of people have family, they have kids, and that becomes, major part of their legacy. In a weird way, the theater is a little bit of my baby. It's all of our baby, right? And so I always say, let's serve the baby, which means this beautiful theater that we've created. And I hope by the time I'm done with my tenure at the theater that I can pass the baton on to somebody and that this keeps going for our community, that it's something that they value and that it goes from being an organization to being an institution, right, within our community. And Bert set that up beautifully for me. We didn't talk about it, but I wrote my first musical when I was a kid, and that was because of him. And so I think that just passing the torch and having it be in a good financial and, good place at the end.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything that you want to end with? Is there anything else that you want us to know? Anything we haven't touched on?
Well,
Get your tickets, buy your tickets.
JupiterTheater.org, or you can call our box office. We're always happy to help you. We have a box office that's open on weekdays. And I think probably the most important thing, and we were talking about the power of invitation, is whether you come in as a volunteer or a donor or a subscriber or a student, just come be part of the Maltz Jupiter Theater. There's a lot of really great opportunities and a lot of fun. And we rely on people. It's a building. It's right now a beautiful building, but it's
gorgeous.
bricks and mortar. Mm-hmm. It's the people that come in our building that do their work and that have the enjoyment, build the memories that make it a great organization. So that's what I would ask, is just come be a part of us.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much. This was awesome. You were great. Absolute pro. We are so proud of the Maltz Theater. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your support. You are so supportive of the Chamber, and not just the Chamber, so many different nonprofits in the community. You do so much for the community. We can't thank you enough. And we're really proud of you guys.
And thank you for your leadership too, because you got to have a charismatic leader, and you are that for our Chamber too. So good on you.
Thank you, Andrew. That means a lot. So thank you so much for tuning in. This was another great show. We'll have another episode coming out in a couple weeks. Please make sure to follow us on social media. Share this with your friends. Let everybody know about all the great things going on in Palm Beach North. Thank you.